welcome back to Doodling with Purpose. I'm your host, Scott Toy Guru Nightlick, and here we are again, building our lessons, and gosh, what week are we up to now?
69, dudes!
Wow, that's quite a lot we've done. Well, we're just going to dive right in and keep going because there's no point in stopping now. If you've learned all your glyphs and we're starting to put language together, we're really going to start to work on our first paragraph and our first sentence structure. So we are going to review a little bit, but it's only because last week's lesson goes right into this week's, and it's good to constantly remind ourselves. And you should also be doodling all the old glyphs every week. All right, so last week we looked at two words that were contractions that didn't have all of the letters for all of the words, but had larger meaning, and these are used a lot in Egyptian. The first is pert haru, and the second one is chatip dai nasua. Again, remembering that there's no vowels in hieroglyphs. And both of these, or rather more so the second one, is what is called a defective word, not because it doesn't work like this latter, but because it doesn't follow the usual rules of reading straight across. So looking at the first word, pert haru, we have per for the house, haru for the ore, and then two determinatives, the bread, which is a jelly bean, and the beer, which is a little mug, underneath it. It doesn't mean that the offering is bread and beer, but they're always used. Then the second one is where we have our defective writing. So it's read chatip dai, and then swa, the reed shoot, is read last, even though it appears first. This is, again, we've talked about because it is an honorary transposition, meaning because it's the word for king, words for king, words for God, those things go written first, even if they're pronounced last. So if it was written out, you'd see the ghost one version there at the end that's moved up to the front, because in hieroglyphs they have honorary transposition and graphical transposition, which means it's written just to make the word look nicer. So these words are a voice offering and an offering that a king gives, broken up, and you can go back to last week's lesson number 68 for more detail about how this is broken up. But it's best to just read these straight and not necessarily wonder or worry about the internal grammar. It's best to just know. So one new word we learned last week was die, D-I, but pronounced die, which is a triangle with another triangle in it. This is a representation of a loaf, like a loaf of bread here. I guess more of a triangular version of a loaf of bread, not to be confused with the jelly bean that actually means bread. Difference between bread and loaf. So maybe it's a slice. So another way to write die, which means to give, is to have a hand holding the loaf, which you've already learned the hand, which is ah, and now you just draw the triangle on top of it, and that also means to give. So let's look at this all together. If we had the hand with the triangle, to give, with the viper with the horns, which is he, followed by the compound word, a voice offering, and you read it in the order of 1, 2, 3, 4, noting the determinatives don't get read that are part of pert haru. Those are permanent determinatives that just sort of live there as part of the word. And this is going to be translated as die with F in parentheses, F meaning him, that's always put in parentheses, and then pert haru. What this means, translated into English, is going to be the phrase, he gives a voice offering. You've got give, and then the horned viper for he, and then pert haru, voice offering. Although technically once we get into tenses, it's actually going to translate, if we're going to go by the book, as Spock always says, it would be so he may give a voice offering. But we'll get into that later. For now, it's good enough to think of it as he gives a voice offering, unless you want to just be technical as so he may give a voice offering, because hey, technically right is the best kind of right. All right, so let's look at a few things that can be part of an offering. We've talked about bread, that's the jelly bean. So that just translates to bread. To write it out fully, it would be the loaf with the jelly bean and then the offering. So it's got 3 different determinatives there, plus the strokes for plural, because it's more than one bread. Next up for offerings are oxes, or ox, which is pronounced ka. That can either be done as an ox head, or if you're going to write it out, it would be written out with the hands outstretched, which we know is pronounced ka, and then the phallus, because it's a male animal, and then a picture of a bull, a full bull, not just the head. So it's still pronounced ka. It has two determinatives, male and cattle, or it can be just done with the cattle head. Either way, it's pronounced ka. All right, the third thing that we can give as a voice offering is alabaster, which can be done with the sh, the tied rope, or it can be written out with full signs. And remember, when you have an S with the little V over it, it's pronounced sh, like you're shushing someone, like SH, and then written out fully, you have the SH pool, the S folded bolt of cloth, and then two determinatives. Here you have the string and the symbol for alabaster, which is a bowl with a diamond in it. Pretty easy to draw. So again, I'm not going to teach you how to draw these ones. By now, these ones are easy. All right, three more things that can be given as offerings. We already know beer. We talked about that a few weeks ago. That's pronounced hunkut, which is the flax, the hill, the loaf, and then the determinative for beer. But if you remember, this is one of those odd words that doesn't follow all of the rules, and it's going to have actually a silent letter in it that's not seen. How do you know this? You just remember it. So it's got a silent N in there. It's not written because it looks sloppy, and it doesn't look aesthetically pleasing, but it's pronounced hunkut, as if there was an N there between the flax and the hill for H and K. It's just one of those things you got to remember. All right, next up we have fowl or birds. We learned this word already. It's opid. And that little thing that looks like a 3 is actually pronounced A. That's just a vocabulary way of writing A like the back of the throat, ah, like cockney or bottle. And then written out, you would have the vulture, you would have the mat, and the hand with a determinative of a bird at the end could also be opud, because A, P, and D. The A for the vulture, the P for the mat, and the D for the hand with the determinative. Or you can just draw the head of a bird there, much like the beer determinative. And then finally, we have linen, which is written as two triangles with two lines up and a line across. This is pronounced munchut. And again, when you see an H with the V under it, it's pronounced ch, like the back of your throat. So written out fully, you would use the game board, the water sign, the placenta, and the loaf, followed by the determinative for linen. Again, two triangles, each with a line up and then a line across. Easy to write, and it's pronounced the same way, munchut. But if you look at it, you have m, and then you have, which is MN, the game board, then N, the water sign, ch for the placenta, and t for the loaf, obviously not pronouncing the determinative for linen at the end. And we've talked about how if a double consonant is followed by a single consonant, in this case mn, and then n, following it, you cross off the second N. It's just there to jog your memory that the game board is MN, to remind you it's a two consonant sound, but it's not pronounced. You don't pronounce the double consonant. All right, so here we go. I want you to pause the video here and see if you can work this one out based on everything we've learned. All right, go ahead and pause it, remembering that the lotus plant is a number. If you need to go back a few lessons to remember what number that is. All right, pause here, take a look, and spend some time, spend as long as you need. Okay, now for unpaused, this is going to be written out die equals F, pert haru, cha hunt, cha ka, cha aped, cha shis, cha menechet. I know, it sounds like I'm just like clearing my throat, right? But were you able to get all of this? Were you able to transliterate it? Now, not only transliterate it, but again, let's pause the video and see if you could do the full translation. So if we're unpaused now, so he may give an offering, or a voice offering, of 1,000 bread, 1,000 beers, 1,000 bulls, 1,000 fowl, 1,000 alabaster, and 1,000 pieces of linen. Boy, I'd like to be the recipient of that. Maybe I'll just take the beer and the bread. You can keep the fowl and the bowls. But there you go. All right. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Practice writing all of your glyphs because you didn't come this far in the series to turn away now because it's really getting good. And we're going to really start diving into more words, more structure, more verbs, and more tenses as we continue to doodle with purpose, the internet's only week-by-week guide to learning hieroglyphics. And, stick around. Of course, if you like this video and you want YouTube to share it with other people, the best way is to like it and subscribe because that hits YouTube's algorithm and tells them to share it with other people. And that's why I ask you to do that, because it's just fun, free knowledge, and it's fun to share that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys back here for more Doodling with Purpose next week. Bye now.